The man who meticulously documented each day with Barbra Streisand is currently dealing with his most difficult entry to yet. Following their 25th wedding anniversary, James Brolin and Barbra Streisand are facing their greatest obstacle, a devastating reality that has caused James to take a leave of absence from his work. In order to stay at home, he has even declined a large $2 million position. Barbra Streisand has been fighting a secret war for many years. One that has an impact on millions of women worldwide. The startling reality is that heart disease kills more women than all cancer combined, making it the leading cause of death for women. Consider this: heart disease and stroke will claim the lives of 1 in 3 women. This indicates that a lady loses her life nearly every 80 seconds. Numerous families suffer tragically as a result of this silent killer's frequent lack of awareness or misunderstanding. When it comes to heart health, women frequently receive inferior care than males, which makes the issue much worse. Sometimes, doctors fail to recognize the warning signals of a heart attack or fail to provide the appropriate testing and care. The Yentl syndrome is the name given to this unequal treatment. This phrase was inspired by Barbara's own film, Yentl, about a woman who had to pose as a man in order to receive an education. Barbra felt shocked and angry when she became aware of these significant disparities in care. She came to the realization that, contrary to popular belief, heart disease was not exclusive to the elderly. Rather, it was a pervasive epidemic that affected women of all ages, particularly African American women and younger women. James Brolin is actually bidding farewell to portions of his own illustrious career, not to Barbra, because of this pervasive systemic health catastrophe. According to Hollywood insiders, James just declined a large acting part worth $2 million. He took this action merely to remain at home and support Barbra while she tackles the difficult task of promoting women's heart health. His choice demonstrates his strong support for her and her important cause. His decision is an obvious indication that their distinct bank accounts, which they have maintained throughout the years, are now combining in a way that goes beyond money. There is a huge need for cash for study, awareness, and treatment facilities as Barbra advocates for this cause, and James is prepared to support her in covering the costs of this worldwide battle. After 25 years of marriage, this is the biggest test they have faced. James's next chapter may be the most tragic since he prioritizes his wife's mission to save women's lives over his own goals and professional aspirations. It is a potent demonstration of love and unity. We must examine Barbara's own story, a life full of obstacles that she overcame, in order to fully appreciate the tenacity and battle she brings to this important cause. On April 24, 1942, Barbra Streisand was born in Brooklyn, New York. When Barbra was just 15 months old, her father, Emmanuel, a well-respected educator, died of a seizure. The family had to move in with her grandparents because they had very little money after his death, just $250 in savings. Although Barbra didn't know her father, she discovered a message he scribbled in her birth book that read, "I think this one is going to be very special." She was profoundly impacted by this early loss and financial hardship. For young Barbra, life did not get any easier. Her stepfather was cold and once threatened to shatter her spirit, but her mother remarried. Barbra left home at the age of 16. She slept on old cots, couches belonging to friends, or even fire escapes in the summer because she had nowhere to go and no money. There were only 3 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, and 12 records in the only bag she was carrying, which was taped together. She continued to study in diners and libraries while maintaining perfect attendance at school. She only made $17 a week working part-time for 75 cents an hour. In order to avoid having to acknowledge that she was homeless, she managed to make it last by going to see her mother twice a week, right before supper. For 3 years, she wore the same coat, mending it herself and even using spare costume materials to dye it a different color. She developed a strong foundation of resilience and a keen awareness of social issues during this difficult time, which equipped her for the demanding environment of Hollywood and her subsequent outspokenness. When Barbra was 18 years old in 1960, she was working as an usher at a theater and had seen The Sound of Music over 100 times. Before going to work, she rehearsed singing by herself in the theater and committed every scene to memory. When a stage manager heard her sing one evening, he assumed she was an understudy. She brazenly responded she was auditioning, even though she wasn't, when he asked who she was. It was already obvious how determined she was. 2 days later, she was spending the weekend performing for $18 in a nightclub. Her regular usher's salary is doubled. She had never taken a vocal lesson before. She gained experience by testing echoes and attracting small groups by singing in subways and stairwells. She was frequently informed that she had a $1 million voice or that she was too odd-looking. But one producer's 5-cent face. Nevertheless, she performed Cry Me a River that evening and then a humorous rendition of Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. She received flawless points from the judges, a first for the club, when the audience fell silent and then applauded for almost 5 minutes. She demonstrated that skill did not have to conform to a standard of beauty. She boldly changed her name in 1961, deleting the second A to become Barbra, claiming that this made her stand out. She continued to sing the strange tunes she liked, maintained her Brooklyn accent, and declined cosmetic surgery. She demonstrated her persistent self-belief by choosing to manage her music and image despite professional counsel to the contrary. Her debut album was issued by Columbia Records in 1963. They only printed 10,000 copies since they believed it would fail because it only featured show tunes rather than hit music and ballads, but it sold 150,000 copies in a single month, exceeding forecasts. Barbra was in complete charge of the creative process. In defiance of all marketing advice at the time, she picked all the tracks herself and even turned down a color cover in favor of a straightforward black and white image. She famously defeated Frank Sinatra to win the Grammy for Album of the Year for this album. Her victory so infuriated several Grammy voters that they resigned. She made the famous statement, "This isn't luck, this is what happens when you don't listen to people who don't understand your vision," in her brief acceptance speech. Then, in 1964, Funny Girl debuted on Broadway. Barbra played Fanny Brice an astounding 867 times, missing only 2 performances despite having illness. Songs were composed especially for her to display her incredible gift, and her voice had a 3.5-octave range. She was wet by a broken sprinkler during one concert, yet she continued to sing. The director included this impromptu incident into the act since he appreciated it so much. Barbra experienced significant stage fright, or the fear of forgetting her lines, while she was in Funny Girl. This phobia grew worse after she lost the words during a 1967 performance. Her usually brazen persona was given a humanizing, vulnerable dimension by her anxiety, which prevented her from performing on stage for 27 years. Barbra got a $5 million TV contract with CBS for 10 specials in 1965 when she was barely 23 years old. She had total control under the deal. Without her consent, CBS was unable to make any changes. And they were not allowed to break up her songs with ads. My Name is Barbra, her debut special, disregarded all the rules. The network executives were frightened when she began the broadcast singing by herself in the dark. However, 71% of those who watched TV that evening paid attention. She took home 5 Emmys and even edited the entire presentation herself. The director later acknowledged that he had simply done as she had asked. Barbra Streisand made her theatrical debut in Funny Girl as Fanny Brice in 1968, marking her transition from Broadway to the film industry. The film's popularity skyrocketed, making it the highest-grossing film of the year in the U.S. Because of the impact of her performance, Barbra won Best Actress at the Academy Awards for her debut film. She tied with Katharine Hepburn, which is even more startling. The sole tie in that particular Oscar category. Her most difficult task, however, was directing Yentl, her debut film, in 1983. After 15 years and 12 studio rejections, she was ultimately granted a $14.5 million budget. She put in extremely long hours for the production, frequently working 20-hour days. She even led a predominantly male workforce while concealing herself in tight restraints. Several crew members even wagered that she would fail, yet she disproved their predictions. The film earned more than $40 million. Even after the movie's success, Barbra continued to be treated unfairly because of her gender. A voter said that he didn't cast his ballot for her only because she was a woman. Only 0.5% of major studio films at the time were directed by women. Despite Yentl's positive reviews in 1984, Barbra was not nominated for a Golden Globe for main directing. Rather, they created a one-time prize specifically for her, Best Director in a Comedy or Musical, which was eliminated the next year. At the ceremony, Barbra respectfully questioned this choice and inquired as to why she was left out. Congress eventually used her case as evidence of gender bias in Hollywood because it became so well known. She became a pioneer because of her persistent fight against gender bias throughout her career. Barbra made even more history in 1995. She became the first woman to receive the Directors Guild Award for television directing when she directed her HBO concert special. There were 223 camera setups, 125 crew people, and 11 cameras on the show. Throughout all of this, she battled debilitating stage fright, which was brought on by a 1967 performance in which she lost her words. For 27 years, this dread had prevented her from performing on stage. The special was a huge success, earning $93 million and drawing in 26 million viewers despite her personal struggles. Barbra brought up the fact that women had only taken on 3.7% of TV directing positions throughout the event. She first fought the DGA on that same subject 25 years prior to her victory. On July 1, 1996, Barbra Streisand and James Brolin went on a blind date. Both had experienced difficult, unsuccessful relationships and were in their mid-50s. James had recently dissolved his second marriage and owed $1.4 million, while Barbra had been divorced since 1971. After they had cancelled twice, their friend Linda Bruce-Mimmer arranged for them to meet. James was so anxious that he even took a Valium. Barbra was expecting a mountain man, a gruff man with a beard, but James was clean-shaven for a different part. "Who messed up your hair?" was the first thing she said to him. James was deeply hurt by the remark. In 11 years, his ex-wife had never made any remarks about his appearance. He nearly left. But he stayed because of something in Barbra's eyes. In the end, they spoke for 6 hours, till 3:27 in the morning. Later on, they discovered that they were born in Los Angeles, only 3.4 miles apart. That evening, Barbra requested a handwritten note and a lock of his hair, which she still has framed in their house. She acknowledged that she believed he was different from the 28 blind dates she had gone on in the previous 3 years, even though they had only been together for 17 minutes. Barbra had been secretly engaged to another man when they first met, something James was unaware of at the time and only disclosed in her biography years later. After their 5th date, she ended things. James made 3 attempts to pop the question. The first took place in a hot air balloon over Napa Valley, 87 days after they first met. He presented her with a $250,000 diamond weighing 3.9 carats. However, Barbra declined, citing a 2-year limit following a negative relationship with a previous fiancé. Her early rejections, which were based on trauma from the past, demonstrate how carefully and purposefully they established trust. On New Year's Eve 1997, he made his second proposal in New York. In front of 14 of her friends, he knelt down and played her favorite song from childhood. Once more, she answered no. James's tenacious suggestions, which finally resulted in an extremely intimate letter, show his unwavering dedication to and comprehension of Barbra's need for deep connection. Finally, the third time worked. On March 15, 1998, she was having a picnic at her house in Malibu. He handed her a 24-page letter this time, listing 98 reasons why they should be together. Exactly 2 years after their first date, they were married. July 1, 1998. The wedding took place at Barbra's house in Malibu and cost $1.4 million. The level of security was very high. Visitors and employees were required to sign non-disclosure agreements with $250,000 fines for any violations, and there were 37 guards and a no-fly zone. At 8:47 p.m., the ceremony got underway. The precise moment they met. 15,000 white roses and orchids were sent in from 4 different nations. Tom Hanks, Oprah Winfrey, the Clintons, and Marlon Brando were among the well-known attendees. James wore an Armani suit with diamond cufflinks, while Barbra wore a gown with a 27-foot train. A children's choir from Barbra's organization sang a song she penned for the event, "I've Finally Found You." James spoke throughout the reception. Barbra had the 273 words framed at 11:43 p.m. He added that Barbra helped him overcome his insomnia, which he had suffered from for 27 years. They had read poetry in bed together for 642 nights before to the wedding, solving crossword puzzles and talking about memories they kept to themselves. As an inside joke, James even studied a piano piece he dubbed Barbra's lullaby in secret, misreading her name. According to John Travolta, James kept a journal detailing their daily activities together, which he intended to present to her on their 25th wedding anniversary. In 2023, they accomplished that milestone. James and Barbra practiced what they called bifurcation, keeping their money in different bank accounts from the beginning of their marriage. After losing $3 million in his second divorce, James came up with this notion. Every Tuesday, he claimed, they even divide the cost of dinner. James had a net worth of $60 million and Barbra $400 million. Thus, this maintained equality. They had $800,000 for the house in a single account. James claimed in a 2023 interview that this arrangement prevented them from having financial arguments that destroyed other Hollywood marriages. The COVID-19 lockdown strengthened their relationship even further. Despite the difficulties faced by many couples, they fell in love again and stayed together for 425 consecutive nights. They made breakfast, meditated, and woke up at 6:45 a.m. as part of their daily routine. Each of the 37 puzzles they completed represented a potential year of marriage. They even acted out sequences in costume while seeing Bridgerton and The Crown twice. During lockdown, they also kept a 278-page journal, which James said might be turned into a memoir. Their headquarters, which they dubbed the boardroom, was a $35,000 Swedish mattress. It had places for documents and cushions that could be used as laptop stands, as well as unique support settings for both of them. From that bed, they made important career choices. Even the tracks on Barbra's 2018 CD while lying there were written by her. For $175,000, their bedroom was soundproofed. James added that the majority of their most brilliant thoughts originated in that peaceful area. Barbra and James had a unique method for resolving conflicts. They went on walks. They were quite strict. They avoided using phones, took deep breaths every 30 steps, and walked around their 3.2-acre estate in separate directions. They would come back after 17 minutes and record their feelings in their journals. At least 217 times, they employed this technique. They once went on 7 walks over 3 days in 2019 following a dispute over Barbra's book. They would want separate walking lanes from hotel staff even when they were on vacation. Walking calmed their brains, according to James, and naturally resolve issues. James and Barbra have demonstrated that real partnership entails overcoming life's greatest obstacles together, particularly when those obstacles involve a battle for the lives of millions of people, through their separate journeys of resiliency and a love story based on distinctive foundations. Barbra Streisand is still fighting for the heart health of women. She continues to use her voice and notoriety to advocate for more research and better care. Have an impact. Her entire narrative, including her battles against injustice and stage fear, is chronicled in her 2023 memoir, My Name is Barbra. She continues to be active in 2025, working on new projects and songs, but her love for women's heart health is still very much a part of who she is. At 83, James Brolin is still an actor and narrator, but his priorities have changed. His choice to resign from a $2 million position is a potent testament to his love and commitment to Barbra and her important work. In addition to being her spouse, he supports her in her struggle for gender equality in healthcare and is a partner in her goal. Their special relationship, which is based on openness, customs, and a great deal of respect, enables them to tackle this enormous task together. James Brolin's ongoing career and his readiness to put Barbra's cause first demonstrate a mature partnership in which personal goals are balanced by a common, overarching goal. His departure from some career options is a reprioritization rather than a retreat, demonstrating his active and deep support for his wife's battle against the devastating diagnosis that affects millions of people.